some climate scientists are finding that working with nature could be more effective, because sometimes you just have to leave it to the beavers.
Some scientists, climate scientists, are discovering that it might be more effective to work with nature because sometimes you just have to let the beavers do it. Canada recently moved hundreds of beavers into its dying wetlands, not as a rescue attempt, but as an extreme experiment. They can change the landscape and they offer ecosystem services. It sounds like a wild environmental publicity stunt on the surface, but scientists hope that within a span of 5 years, this daring action has the potential to turn around decades of ecological deterioration. In fact, it is a grand bold step towards turning around the decline of wetlands and the beavers' defining role. If they are correct, the result will not only transform Canada, it might transform the way the rest of the globe does conservation. Beaver complexes stand out as nearly completely drought-proof. Therefore, why beavers, why now, and how can a few furry animals do what billions in government expenditures have not? The solution is a forgotten crisis and a return of nature's original engineers. The forgotten crisis is the loss of Canada's wetlands. For centuries, Canada's wetlands were among the richest on the planet. These enormous marshes, swamps, bogs, and fens used to stretch from the tundra north to the plains south, filtering water naturally, holding off floods, and raising animals like nurseries. But in the past few decades, these lifelines have been vanishing, and rapidly. As many as 7 out of 10 wetlands in southern Canada have disappeared, lost to urban growth, intensive agriculture, and pushy drainage schemes intended to make the land more productive. Ponds were pushed out by parking lots, courtesy of bulldozers. Marshes were flushed out by canals into dry land. Wetland forests were cut down to grow crops and subdivisions. The consequence was that whole areas that had once been full of frogs, fish, birds, and moose now resemble cracked, barren ground. It wasn't merely a loss of something beautiful, it was a loss of functionality. Wetlands function as nature's kidneys, purifying water by filtering out contaminants, absorbing heavy rainfall to avoid flooding, and sequestering carbon in their deep peat soils to chill the climate. Without them, people are hit with more summer droughts and spring floods and filthier drinking water all the time. The collapse warnings were all around. Water levels fell. Vegetation turned brown and perished. Animals that lived off wetlands such as salamanders, dragonflies, ducks, and even big mammals like moose and beavers either disappeared or took drastic plunges in population. What was once an array of life gradually started to disintegrate. Scientists sounded the alarm bells early. One report cautioned that within a generation Canada might lose much of its freshwater diversity. Another discovered that peatlands drained by humans were releasing huge quantities of carbon, turning wetlands from climate buffers into climate emitters. Replacing what was lost with artificial means would take billions. So Canada did something different, something ambitious. Rather than counting on costly technology, they decided to count on biology. In a gesture that would raise eyebrows around the world, Canada started transplanting hundreds of beavers into withering wetlands, a plan that was easy, even bizarre, but might just totally transform everything. It started out as an experiment in a handful of struggling ecosystems. But what happened next would become one of the most surprising and successful environmental turnarounds in recent history. Meet the beaver, North America's first ecosystem engineer. The beaver's return is just as sensational as the wetlands themselves. Once, the beaver nearly disappeared from its native country. During the 1800s, the creature that once had its paw print all over Canada was trapped nearly to extinction. Its thick pelt was sold throughout Europe and North America, igniting the fur trade. Whole beaver colonies were exterminated, their dams blown out, and their place in the ecosystem lost. Marshes evaporated, rivers ran swifter and drier, and no one gave a second thought to the lack of this lowly buck-toothed engineer. Beavers were pests for decades. Their dams were nuisances, clogging culverts, flooding fields, and disrupting infrastructure. Drainage ditches and culverts replaced their efforts. But even though man-made systems performed their function managing water for human use, they were missing something: life. As time went on, scientists started to observe something peculiar. In the few instances where beavers had managed to survive or where they had reappeared stealthily, ecosystems started to thrive. The land was altered, healthier, more robust. Ponds filled with water, birds reappeared, frogs croaked once more in the evenings. Life was coming back not due to policy or funding, but due to a species once on the brink of extermination. Beaver dams once raised without second thought were now under research. Scientists understood that when a beaver sets up home, water arrives. Their dams reduced the speeds of high-flowing streams, spreading water into floodplains. The new wetlands trap sediment, remove pollutants, and supply fertile soil for vegetation. They also attract insects, frogs, birds, fish, and even large mammals such as deer and moose. What had been deemed an issue was now being touted as a keystone solution. This change of thought wasn't merely scientific but emotional. To many conservationists, the beaver represented nature's defiance. In spite of centuries of eradication, they had persisted in enclaves. And given an opportunity, they were willing to return. Provinces such as Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia took the initiative, returning to ancient laws and changing public opinion. New research showed that beaver wetlands were more efficient and cost-effective than man-made wetlands. In some instances, one dam performed better than thousands of dollars of infrastructure. Canada gradually opened its doors to welcome back its centuries-old architects. Rewilding initiatives were initiated not only to conserve existing beavers, but to reinsert them into regions where they previously existed. It wasn't simply saving the beaver that these initiatives did, but restoring nature's balance, allowing a natural engineer to do what it was created to do. Conservationists hoped the beaver's resurgence wouldn't be merely an inspirational tale, but the start of genuine environmental transformation. And it began with the realization that the key to solving contemporary ecological devastation may lie in a long-forgotten aspect of Canada's history. This break led to a rather radical question. If wild beavers inadvertently repair degraded ecosystems, what if we moved them on purpose? What if we put them right into Canada's moribund wetlands, where they were needed most, and just allowed them to do what they had always done? That simple question gave rise to a radical notion that would one day result in moving hundreds of beavers into damaged ecosystems in hopes of kickstarting recovery in just 5 years, something science and money alone had not been able to achieve. But the moment these concepts were brought up, the Canadian government was confronted with stiff resistance. The concept of using beavers to restore Canada's ailing wetlands was straightforward on paper, but in reality, it was far from it. The moment the ambitious project was initiated, it ran into walls all around it, be it from nature, from individuals, or from Canada's history itself. For generations, farmers, property owners, and even municipalities viewed beavers as pests. Their dams filled fields, plugged culverts, and caused damage to infrastructure. When therefore the government and green groups started bandying about the notion of relocating beavers intentionally, many Canadians were puzzled or strongly opposed. Transcending this was a significant early hurdle. Conservationists needed to conduct public awareness campaigns, organize town hall meetings, and provide on-the-ground evidence that beavers could accomplish what billions spent on infrastructure couldn't: restore natural water systems and buffer against climate extremes. It wasn't overnight, but gradually attitudes started to change, particularly after droughts and flood events revealed just how vulnerable the land was to their absence without beavers' natural water management. The message was straightforward. We're out of time, and nature might be our last option. Another issue was trapping and transporting live beavers. Unlike relocating dogs or deer, moving beavers is not a simple task. These animals are clever, strong, and territorial. Catching them alive required trained specialists, humane traps, and the right timing. Beavers are most active at night, and they don't respond well to stress. After capture, transportation proved to be the next hurdle. Beavers were transported across provinces. Others had to be transported to places deep in the wilderness with no roads leading there. For these, helicopters were employed, incurring expenditure and creating logistical challenges such as weather hindrances and altitude constraints. Getting all this done over vast landscapes required meticulous organization and cooperation. More challenging was the identification of wetlands that could still support life. Not all wetlands were prepared to receive a beaver. Indeed, most of the sites selected for reintroduction were already severely degraded. They were either too arid, had no trees and shrubs for food and dam construction, or were contaminated with years of agricultural pollutants. Releasing the beavers there unprepared would be anathema to their survival. Prior to the release of any beaver, ecologists needed to perform comprehensive evaluations by looking at water flow, vegetation, and ecosystem equilibrium. This posed a huge delay in the project because good sites were less than anticipated. In some instances, groups needed to prepare or restore small portions of the environment first before they released the animals. Finally, the absence of natural dam infrastructure was another issue. In areas where beavers had been absent for more than a century, the landscapes were drastically altered. There were no old dams, no creeping streams, and no present ponds. Beavers usually like to settle in areas where they can readily construct a dam, but most release sites were dry, sloping, or devoid of soft, muddy shorelines beavers employ for building. To assist, researchers started constructing artificial starter dams out of logs, limbs, and organic debris in an effort to coax the animals to remain and construct. Even so, however, some beavers would stray off seeking more suitable habitat or merely spurn their new estate. Others did not construct at all or succumbed to stress. With each success story, there were defeats that threatened to shut down the project in its entirety. But something extraordinary started to occur. Despite all adversity, the beavers accommodated, as did the land itself. Slowly, soil cracks eased, streams slowed, birds arrived, and for the first time in decades, hope began to emerge from the mud. The project was no longer on paper. Canada had actually resettled hundreds of beavers in dying wetlands. And against all probability, something was starting to work. Drawing on years of planning and perseverance, Canada is now spearheading one of the most unusual and promising wildlife recovery tales in the world by offering beavers a second chance at rescuing the country. The second chance relocation effort, concentrated primarily in British Columbia, is meticulously planned, locally supported, and already yielding dividends. The beavers used in these endeavors are sourced from several sources, none of which are from far distant locations. They are all local beavers readied for life anew with love and care. Organizations such as the Interior Wildlife Rehabilitation Society in BC play the important role. They work to rehabilitate orphaned or injured beavers, who are frequently saved from roadways, city areas, or washed-out construction sites. After healing and becoming strong, the animals are paired because beavers are social animals, then released into chosen wetlands. A beaver named Maggie, a rehabilitated animal, was, for instance, released into a restored human-made pond behind a beaver dam analog, with food sticks and familiar scent bedding to help her transition. Most of the beavers that were considered nuisances by landowners, usually because of flooding, downed trees, or culvert blockages, are now being live-trapped rather than destroyed. They are taken to facilities, evaluated, and moved to wetlands where their natural activity is beneficial. In other instances, there are already isolated or roaming beavers in restored wetlands. Instead of importing new animals from outside, the agencies humanely move these local beavers within the same drainage system, inviting them to settle and establish new colonies in places where there used to be dams. But beaver relocation in Canada is no drop-and-go affair. It is a considerate, scientifically informed relocation to mend harmed habitats with nature's own repairmen. With a combination of rehabilitation, conflict resolution, and wetland preparation, Canada has been able to start reintroducing beavers into succumbing wetlands, beginning with real animals such as Rudy, Judy, and Maggie.